Welcome, we're your hosts Alicia
and Whitney
on Coming Up Higher, where we're creating space through conversations, special guests, and inspiration
for you to come up higher in the things of Christ in everyday life.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Coming Up Higher. This is Alicia and Whitney, and we are pumped for today's episode because we have a very good friend. He's like a brother to us, Pastor Matthew Costner, and I didn't even realize it until we were looking at his bio that he's actually Dr.
Awesome.
Matthew Costner and has tons of credentials with his name, but that's what I love about him is he's just a humble, passionate guy for Christ and just is just a friend to anybody. And so we're looking forward to him talking about presenting that authentic self to the world and who Christ created you to be, and not to try to be somebody else because there's a void that only you can fill on this earth. And so he's got a great message in this conversation today, but he is a senior pastor of New Beginnings Fellowship here in the Branson, Missouri area. And he's also the executive director of Free Life Ministries, which is a biblical-based counseling program that his parents actually started, and he's getting to carry on that legacy and take it beyond where it's been, and churches utilize it. And it's just a great thing that they're doing there. And he's been married to his wife, Allison, for 12 years, and she's amazing. And they have 5 beautiful children, and we're just excited to have this conversation and for you guys to be encouraged today to bring forth your authentic self in Christ.
Hey everyone, welcome to Coming Up Higher. We are Alicia and Whitney, and we have another great episode. We love introducing you to all of our friends because we have some really cool friends.
Yes.
And this one's, he's actually like a brother to us, and he's the first person that I know of that didn't have a nickname.
Oh, yeah.
Already. We just to intro this, I guess would be good. We met Pastor Matt and his wife Allison when we started leading worship at New Beginnings Church or New Beginnings Fellowship in Hollister, Missouri, and they came from South Carolina.
Right.
And anyways, met up, and we were the interim worship leaders while they were looking for a worship pastor, and that was just a really fun time.
Yeah.
But through that, we all got close and just became like family, and so he found out our nicknames.
Yeah.
I think because of Facebook, Alicia blasted my family nickname on Facebook. So then in the text thread, he's giving me a hard time. And I was like, well, this is Alicia's nickname.
That's right.
So we were giving him ammo, and then we're like, well, you have to tell us your nickname. And he didn't have one. So I won't tell him how he came up with your nickname. Even though I don't want to embarrass you, but it was a funny story. But he's Bubs.
Yeah. Yep,
So,
Bubs.
Like
Bubs.
brother. I'll say it means brother.
Yeah.
Right.
Brother.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's it.
So
Yeah.
Bubs, welcome to the show. We're so glad you're on.
Yes.
Awesome.
Pastor
I'm
Matthew
so excited.
Costner. So
Yeah.
we're happy to have you on.
I'm so happy to be here. Love you guys so much, for real.
We love you too. And so we wanted to just have you share your story, share some of your testimony, and how you're a pastor at New Beginnings Fellowship. You are helping spearhead Free Life Ministries, which is a counseling program that we'll dive into later as well. But you've really gotten to do some pretty cool things in your life. But we wanted to just start with share a little bit about your testimony and your upbringing.
Yeah, sure. Before I do that, let me just say this. One of the things that I just find so great about the Lord is when we truly work to implement his way, then he provides the things we need. And in his word, he tells us, right, go make disciples of all nations. And as we've been here at New Beginnings Fellowship, just trying to make disciples the best we can. I haven't necessarily, I didn't come here seeking friendship. I came here seeking to make disciples. And because God knows what I need, he's brought me great friends in you guys. And so I it encourages me to know that when we truly do our best to implement what he's asked us to do in scripture, he truly does provide all our needs. And you guys have just really been such great friends to me. And so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm from North Carolina. So I did move here from South Carolina, but I'm from North Carolina, and specifically a small town called Shelby. And my dad was in the ministry. And so I grew up in Shelby, North Carolina, Cleveland County with my dad. And my dad, not only did he work, I guess, bivocationally in the ministry, but when he graduated from college, he was like in a quartet, and he sang like old Southern gospel type music. And really, that's kind of what he did the bulk of my life, is he traveled regionally, sang in churches all across, worked in churches. Part of his ministry was to help churches that were undergoing like some sort of problem, help get them to health. And so from very early on as a kid, all I knew of my parents was they had a heart for the local church, but specifically they had this heart for the people in the church, and specifically even the leadership within the church to be who God has called them to be, not, beat down and not wore out, but full of energy and just full of joy, living the gospel life that God so graciously provided. And so I grew up going in and being a part of a lot of smaller, 200-ish average people church, right? My dad leading the worship, my dad traveling. I'd travel with my dad, get on and off the tour bus with him wherever he'd go. And it was really neat growing up in that environment. My dad knew so many, again, Southern gospel type singers. So it wasn't, the Russ Taffs and the Hillsong bands of today. It was literally, back then it was like the cathedrals and
We know that.
And so it was those type groups, right, that the Gaithers, and that we would get the opportunity to be near and around. And great preachers. I did get to be around a lot of great preachers. But being with my dad on the road and getting to do some things, it really, for me, it really was awesome at moments, but it also became this oppressive time where I was learning and trying to be noticed when everybody else wanted to notice everybody around me. I mean, if you're in Branson, at times we can go to somewhere and see someone that's popular, local celebrity, or even a national celebrity, right? And generally in the store, if there's a national celebrity in the store, everyone notices that person, right? And everybody else can be almost like the peripheral, or maybe they're seen if they're known by someone, but usually people don't look at and stare at the people that's not known. They look at the people that is known. And so I grew up in a really neat environment where I got to see God do some incredible things, literally save thousands and thousands of people at like concerts and crusades. But here I was as a young man wanting to be recognized for whatever reason. And I just never was. And what that did for me as a little kid is help me, and at least in my mind, make me start thinking that if I'm going to be seen, then I have to do something that's worth seeing. And therefore, I began to start trying to find ways to be seen. And that always didn't help me out, right? As a little kid, that at times I'd get into trouble and I'd be seen. And maybe then I'd do it again because I wanted to be seen again. And then, or, once I realized I was good at sports, I started really pushing sports. And so I did well in athletics, and I got to play some semi-pro soccer and got to do some neat things, but ultimately that didn't pan out well. And I didn't get to continue a career and retire being a professional soccer player. I just did it a couple months and wasn't good enough to stay there. So I went back to school. And when I went back to school, because I wasn't seen. And so here I was trying to I felt like because I was constantly around people that were noticeable, I was constantly having to work to be noticed. And what that looked like for me at times was that I would do whatever it took to say something in front of, two incredible people like you, to say, who do I think they want me to be? Because they will only notice me and hear me if I'm who they want me to be. And if I can't give them what they want, then they may be nice to me, but they're not going to want to stick around. And so I began to live, really as a kid, a life of me telling people what they wanted to hear so that they would notice me and give me an opportunity just to be seen. And so my life, my story is really, I've done some neat things. I've been around a lot of neat people, but I've never been like, I've said it this way about high school and college. I've always been good enough to make the team, but I've never been the star of the team. Right. And so I feel like I've been around a lot of neat people my entire life, like you two. You're incredible. And people notice you and love you. I told you earlier, someone said, man, someone bought a celebrity's house. I'm like, who is it? Like, Alicia. I was like, that's true. She is. She's incredible. And but you know, and these scenarios that I've found myself in, it's been something where, again, I've wanted to be noticed. I've wanted to be known, and me thinking, it's not true, but me thinking, if I don't do something that's noteworthy, if I'm not the best at something, then I won't be known and no one will see me. And therefore, I will just forever never be known.
Yeah.
And so it's really created a sense in me of trying to become someone I'm not. And my life has been me learning that it's not healthy, nor is it right for me to pretend to be someone else. And because if I am acting like someone else, God can't bless the real me if I'm not the real me.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I think that can be exhausting as well, as we decide who we want to show up as in each arena that we walk into so often. There's like, what are people going to think of me, or how am I going to be perceived?
Right.
Instead of coming in and saying, how can I change the atmosphere I'm about to walk into? And there's that shift that happens and I've seen it in your life. You're not that person anymore. I didn't know you back then, but the Matthew I know now is not that person. He walks in and changes the atmospheres he walks into. And so I think a lot of our listeners have that perception of when they walk into a room or they walk into a new job or whatever it may be, in a new friend circle, and they, how will they perceive me, instead of who has God created me to be, and what does he want me to do in this new arena, in this new group of friends, or whatever it is. And so I think what you're speaking about is really, really powerful.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's, for me, I realized that, and though this is an old cliche, that my dad he planted a church in North Carolina with another guy called Christ Covenant Church, right? And it's known for ultimately having launched Stephen Furtick out with Elevation. And so my dad was a part of all that movement early on. And one of the things that was really taught, to me as a kid, but I didn't understand it fully, is that we need to be the thermostat.
Yeah.
Right. We need to set the tone, not reflect the tone.
Yeah.
And as me going into a room when I was younger, and as I've grown in college and high school, is that when you're not authentically you're constantly having to reflect the tone that someone else brings in. And different people, this is true in my house, I like the temperature colder than my wife likes it, right? I mean, I want to be sitting on like 68, like all the time. Allison was like, she needs it to be like 73, 74. Like, well, if you're, when someone sets the temperatures at different, like you're having to go up and down. Well, that's draining. Who wants? I mean, life is already like a roller coaster for like me to be up and down, right? And so it's exhausting. No wonder the Lord says, come unto me, who's tired. I'll give you rest. He's meaning, if you stop trying to act like you're someone else and just rest in my identity for you. I was reading this right beforehand. I think this is so good. This is my Bible. Colossians, second Colossians. So then, just as you received Christ Jesus as Lord, continue to live your lives in him, rooted and built up in him, strengthened in the faith as you were taught, and overflowing with thankfulness. But the key here is rooted and built up in him. right? Because I can't be who he's called me to be if I'm not rooted in him. That's the only way that's the only way I can become who I want to be. That's the only way I can bear the fruit, is if I'm grafted in and stayed to the source. Now I can become and produce the things that God has called me to become. Otherwise, I'm just producing things that I want to be.
Yeah.
And those things not only aren't what can best help our community, but it actually is things that, although it can seem good, there's a scripture that says this: there's a way that seems right to man, but its end leads into death and destruction, right? And so if I'm not grafted in, rooted into Christ, and allowing him to live through me, then I'm doing what I think is best, which at times could be fake. Because what sometimes I think is best is, well, how can I get Alicia and Whitney like me? I like them. I think they're cool. Well, how can I get them to like me? That's natural me, right? Spiritual me is, this is my sisters in Christ, and let's do this thing.
Yeah.
But natural me says, I want to be known. I want friends. And we're in a new community, my wife and family and I. How can we create friends? And so let me do whatever it takes for me to build friends. That's natural. But that's wrong. And it's wrong because now I'm worried about what you need me to do or say what you need me to say.
Right.
And now I'm not living out truth because I'm living out what I think you think truth is, versus I'm rooted in Christ. Now I can stand on the truth, and now we'll all be set free, which just goes back to the ministry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much good stuff in there.
I know.
And I just think it just shows the importance of like staying in our own lanes. And I know that's kind of like a cliche right now, but it's so true. Like how important it is just to celebrate what's happening in others' lives. Like even, like I can celebrate what's happening in Alicia's life and what her and her husband are doing and things like that, but still also like stay in my lane and realize like that's what she's doing. But God's calling me to do some things myself too, even though we're ministry partners and sisters and things. Like we still have our own callings and our own, things that God's asking us to do.
Yeah.
And one time God had just given me the revelation that every individual, every person that's born is a unique expression of God, whether they realize that or not. Like we're created in his image. And so literally I'm a piece of an image of God, like Alicia's a piece, Pastor Matt, you're a piece, but we're not the same piece, because there's so many facets to God. There's so many characteristics to him. And so that's why it's important that we're all authentic to the image of God he's created us to be. And that we're not just copying one another, because we each have something unique to give, to bring to the body of Christ and to bring to the world. And so that's why we have to stay in our lane. Yeah. We have to know what God's asking us to do, regardless of whether people understand it or not, regardless of whether it's celebrated or not, regardless of whether it puts us in front of people or not. Like it is critical that we stick with the mission that God's given each and every one of us.
Yeah. Well, that's, and I think that's the thing, is that if we are the body of Christ, we're not all index fingers, right?
Yeah.
we are literally, we are different parts. And what I tell our church this all the time, is that if we are the body of Christ, then when they aren't with us, then we're not complete.
True.
And if they aren't authentically who God's called them to be, then we're still not complete. Because we can't all be index fingers and be a body. We're just going to be a bunch of index fingers.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is good at pointing.
Not going to get too far.
Yeah.
Well, if you're just an index finger and it's just there, it's this nothing. Right? The whole thing, going back to the scripture, rooted and built in him. If I'm a branch and I'm not rooted and attached to the vine, then all I am is a stick in the mud, right?
Yeah.
I'm dead.
Right.
But if I'm actually grafted into the vine, now I can actually bloom and blossom into whatever God's coming to be. Well, if it's just an index finger, it just is dead. It's not, an index finger cannot live without being attached to the rest of the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And like, I think that's so good. And with your testimony too, what was like maybe that turning point? We know, you even mentioned before we started recording, like going to school for something different. Like you were in sports because you were looking for this identity, but like what was kind of like a turning point where you were just saying, I can only be Matt Costner. Like I can only be the authentic me. What were some of the turning points that brought you to that place?
Yeah, I think a couple things really helped me. One, I truly found myself around a small group of guys. We read this book, Wild at Heart by John Eldridge.
Mm-hmm.
And it really did help me begin to think that God created me to be me. I mean, it was really the first book that I ever had, probably one of the first books outside of like school class stuff that I actually read the entire thing. And I was just enthralled with it because it basically, literally like chapter 1 said, I don't have to be my dad and I don't have to be the pastors. This is what I got. I don't have to be my dad, which I didn't want to be. And I didn't have to be the pastors that we had been around. I didn't want to be like them either. And I didn't need to be, Bill Gaither. I didn't need to be these other people, I didn't need to be Billy Graham. God has me here for a special purpose. And if I want to be used and purposed, then I can't try to be someone else because they have that purpose, not me. I have my purpose, right? And so I really began to feel like, well, if I'm going to be here on earth, why would I not go fulfill my purpose? Like, what good is it just to be laying around and not doing anything? I want to make a difference. I don't want to make I said this is I don't want to make a point with my life. I want to make a difference with my life. And I want my kids to know Jesus. And I want hopefully one day my kids will be married. They're all younger. But when they do, like, man, how cool would it be to know somehow that me living on purpose and me working hard in our community actually affected some families, that their kids got saved. And now I can rest in the assurance that when my kids get married, that, they're marrying Christian brothers and sisters, and and it's not a train wreck waiting to happen. It literally is something good and beautiful that God has created. So I think me thinking, how can I live on purpose? Realizing that I'm getting nowhere trying to be like someone else, and that God really can use me. And I didn't know, and in some ways, I would, and I hate to admit this, I'll just admit it. Like, in some ways, I wish God would use me in bigger ways. But in other ways, I think, man, I don't deserve the way God is using me now. And, if you guys really knew the sin that has happened in my life over the years, the things that I've thought, the things that I've said, the things that even I've done at times, right? Like the thought that God would continue to use me blows my mind, right? We look at David in the Bible. He was such a train wreck. His family was a train wreck. And yet what I love about the story of David is that David is not known for being a train wreck. He's known by his faith.
Right.
And I don't need to be a person trying to be someone else to be known. I need to have a faith that pushes me, helps me come up higher, right? So that, and if my faith can take me to a place that, in essence, like, my work can't get me to.
That's good.
And so if I'm going to ever be and do what God wants me to do, then I'm going to have to stop working for it. And I'm going to have to start believing that Christ has me here, and that Christ can do something in me, and Christ can do something through me that I simply can't do on my own. Because if it's up to me, then truly what I do is limited.
Right. So many good things in that.
I know. It's good.
Well, and I even think of the verse in 1 Samuel 16:7, where it just talks about, do not look on his appearance or on his height or stature, because I rejected him. And that's actually when Samuel was going to anoint David, but they were looking at all the other ones because this one looks the part, or, this one is handsome, or this one's tall, or whatever. But for the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. And that encourages me because, like you said, like, we're not deserving of God using us, or God opening doors in the ways that he has, or, allowing us to speak into people's lives, or to for our music to be played in their cars or whatever, but God, he just
Right.
wants that willing heart. He just wants someone that says yes, that's willing to be vulnerable, that's willing just to do whatever it takes, even if you don't have the what you think you need, the education, or maybe you think you need the experience or this or that. That doesn't matter to God. Like, he's just looking for that yielded heart that will say yes to him, and that will seek him, and that for his glory, and not for our own. And I think as you were talking, I was thinking of recently, I was talking with a friend and just kind of getting into that comparison mode of, and I literally said these words. I was like, I know this is comparison, but, and then I proceeded to say like something about, this life that I was comparing myself to. And that's like, I go and talk about it. And then finally when I finished, she's like, okay, well, first of all, I'm just going to go back to the very first sentence you said. And, that was complete comparison, and you were right.
Well, I think it's something where, like, as a pastor, like, I love our people, and I love watching them, learn something new in the script. I love for them to like actually get it right and apply it and see it change their lives. And I can't, and the fact truly that God is using me in new beginnings is just mind blowing. And yet I can say, humanly speaking, I mean, I don't have Facebook anymore. I needed to get rid of my Instagram because I'm on Instagram, and every once in a while I'll see, I don't follow everybody, but every once in a while, I guess I hit the wrong thing and it shows me like a bunch of popular posts or whatever. I don't know what that section is, but whatever that section is, and I'll see other pastors and they're doing incredible things, and they'll even say things that I'm like, I don't even know if I believe that. I don't even know if that's true. And yet yet they're on these massive stages. And I'm like, Lord, like, how did they get there? And then I start really taking an inward view of me. And I'm like, well, how in the world did I get here? Like, I read this recently and I thought this really has changed my mind about a lot of things. It said evangelicalism is this: love the sinner, hate the sin. I thought that's interesting. But this is what they said. Biblical Christianity is this: love the sinner and hate your own sin.
Wow.
And I thought that's pretty, like, how like transformational, right? I mean, it's just love the sinner, but hate my own. And so here I am in this comparison trap thinking, man, I don't get it why they're there, but they're clearly on a big stage, but how did I get here? And it's literally love them and hate the parts of me that doesn't need to be there. And if I'm focusing on ridding myself of the parts in me that I don't need any longer, then I don't have time to be thinking about someone else's junk. Because I've got enough of my own for me to spend a lot of my time trying to make sure that I'm not letting my mind go in places that it doesn't need to go.
Yeah.
And especially through comparison, right? As this is an incredible community, and God has blessed us in incredible ways, but and I am an only child, but even looking on, I've always wanted a truly a brother or a sister. Well, I can get jealous over people having siblings and getting to have that close relationship bond that I don't have. When my dad died 4 years ago, come Thanksgiving, is, I felt all alone because I didn't have someone that I had my mom, but she was going through it in a completely different way. And like, who was I going to walk through this really difficult time with? Well, if I'm trying to be someone else, then they can't help me walk through my junk because I'm being fake about who I am right now. And thankfully I am married to an incredible woman, Allison, who's walked with me through a lot of stuff. And she, she really helps me a lot to say, that's not who you are. And when I say something, or I'm starting to go down this comparison trap or whatever, that's not, she's good. That's not who you are. Helping me to continue to lean into the real me, which the real me is righteous and set apart, and known, right? The fake me is my sin, and I'm not noticed. And or how about this? I'm noticed for all the wrong things. But that's not who I am. David's not remembered. When we think about David in the Bible, most of our first thoughts isn't he was an adulterer. He killed a murderer. He didn't always, we think he was a man after God's own heart.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, those other things were true, but that's not who he was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, have I lied in my life? Of course I have. But I'm not a liar.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Have I said things I didn't need to say? Of course I have. But that's not who I am. I'm not a word abuser or whatever. I don't know what you didn't say. I'm just saying, like, we can allow ourselves to go down the fake courses. When I say fake course, it's the fleshly course of direction, which will have me think that I got to be all these things and do all these things. Or I can allow myself to think, if I go down that route, I can do some neat things, but God's not really going to use me.
Mm.
He's going to use a fake version of me, or he's going to use, someone else's thing through me, maybe, but like, it's still not me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I could get up on Sunday and preach a sermon that Rick Warren preached, and it may help some people, may impact some people. Or I could get up and allow God to speak through me how he's filled me this week in my time of study, and it's going to impact all people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I had to determine and decide, do I want to make a point, I get fake me, which I could do. I can do some good things every once in a while. Or I could submit fully to the Holy Spirit and say, Lord, this is who I am. You've called me. You knew all of my junk before you brought me here. And you decided to use me anyways. And you still want to use me anyways. Before you called me to new beginnings, you knew everything about me, every bad and wrong decision I'm even going to make here new beginnings. And you still thought in your plan, it was right to put me here. And I can rest in the fact that I don't have to try to be perfect. Matter of fact, King Jehoshaphat, I just read this, and I think it's like 1 Kings 22 in our Bible reading plan. He did everything right except tear down the high places. Well, the high places was where they went and they would like sacrifice. And so in essence, he didn't eradicate and demolish the stronghold.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's kind of like he took it's kind of like saying, he removed the alcohol from the bar, but he still left the bar. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you still can go back to that place and think back to where, and instead of, King Jehoshaphat just took the beer out. I'm not saying that that's the worst thing in the world, but I'm just saying, but for an alcoholic, it is really, right? So for an alcoholic, the best way to get yourself out of that mindset, you don't just remove the alcohol, you burn down the bar.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so King Jehoshaphat didn't do everything right. And yet God used him as a mighty king for 25 years in the people's lives. And the children of Israel was blessed under his leadership, and he didn't do everything right.
Yeah.
But it was because he submitted himself to the Lord. And as he submitted himself to the Lord blessed it.
Yeah.
And again, I think for me, especially when I started having kids, is I thought, man, there was a season that I lived for me, but I truly can no longer live for me anymore. I have to do something different because it's not fair for my kids to suffer. And it's not fair for my wife to suffer. And the truth is, I don't have to suffer if I submit.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
There's a better way.
Exactly. When you realize there's a better way.
Right.
And I'm going to take that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, it does take that vulnerability. It does take that having somebody like you were talking about, your wife, Allison, to kind of bring you back to square one, bring you back to that foundational place, that, the plumb line, if you will, like that. No, this is who you are. This is what we measure our standard by, of what even what we measure success as. What do we measure success with? Well, is it having a good home life and a stable family, and sacrificing my will for God's will for my family? Is it, there's things that the world measures success as far as having large crowds or whatever, that they neglect what God defines as success,
Yeah.
or what is fruitful, like we talked about earlier. And that's what I hear you saying too, is just laying down the labels of even what other people may have placed on you.
Yeah.
Well, you've always been this way, and that's who you are, or you struggle with this, so you struggle with alcohol, so you're an alcoholic, and that's not the case, or different things like that. And because you're establishing your identity in Christ, and he
Right.
defines who you are. And I think so many people miss that, as even I'm a widower, or things like that.
That's right.
It's we can kind of take on what has happened to us as our identity, and we can label ourselves, or other people label us those things, and that can kind of be tricky to unpack in a lot of ways, is taking not only what we try to present ourselves as to others, but what other people have called us and identified us wrongly in the
Right.
past, and taking those off too, and say, no, like I can't, like David, I can't wear Saul's armor. I
Right.
can't go into this battle wearing what you think I need to be wearing, because it doesn't fit me. And so, yeah, there's so much to unpack with this identity topic. And that's why I'm so grateful we serve a God that's like so patient and kind with us. Like you
Oh,
said, with King Jehoshaphat, he didn't have it all together. He didn't get every single thing right, or check off every box on the list, but he did do some things right, and he was able to reign for like, I think you said 25 years, because the Lord is gracious to us, and he's patient. He's patient as we unpack.
Right. Well, I think a key to all of this is, Alicia, what you said too, is like, how do you define success? And just finding like godly contentment in the present is something that God's like really been working with me on the past year or so. And just being able to be in that place of okay, I'm living in the moment, and I'm really content with where God has me. But I do still have that expectancy that there's more, or that God's going to do these things or fulfill these promises that he's given to me. But right now I'm content with where God has me. And that's hard. That's a hard place to be, I feel like, as a Christian, even, because like if I was Abraham and God had told me like, you're going to have descendants as numerous as the stars, and he literally saw one, or I guess like two if you include Ishmael, but like Isaac was the promise, and like that's the one that he saw. But yet I haven't read it in the Bible that he complained, or he thought, well, God, what the heck, you promised me as numerous as the stars. But he was content with that one. He was content with that Isaac. And how do we measure success? So like for us with our music ministry and putting out songs, like, is success being on the radio and getting a gold album or whatever, is that success? Or does success look like, being authentic and putting out that music and just hearing a few testimonies of, you have no idea how much that song blessed me, or that's my heart cry. And I've come, or I shouldn't say I've come to the place, but I'm coming to the place where it doesn't always have to be like big. It can be like the small things, and like Alicia said with you, Pastor Matt, like raising those kids and instilling that godliness in them, and being that dad, that present dad that they need. Like, to me, that's success. And the things that you're doing at New Beginnings Fellowship, and reaching the people in Hollister, and all the people that have been baptized and come to know Christ. Even that story you had told at church about a man showing up and getting saved and then passed away shortly later, like that's success to me, because like he was saved from hell because of the work that you are doing and New Beginnings is doing. And I think because we're in such a hustle culture and a grinding culture, like people celebrate people that work 80-90 hours a week. We live in a culture that celebrates people that like leave their families to go do this stuff, and their kids are at home like, where's mom, where's dad, but we're celebrating those people. And I think we have to have an appreciation for more of the hiddenness of God, and just being okay with the times where it's just us and God, or being okay with the times that we, there's places we've gone in to sing at that are like super small and to other people that wouldn't look like success. but yet lives were completely changed, like through worship or, through the word God brought or whatever. And I don't know, I guess I'm just like wanting to learn just to really be content in that, and where, in the hiddenness of God, or in the, even just the smaller arenas, because God can do amazing things, and God has done amazing things through that. And
what I think is interesting is I was listening, is that I lived in Nashville for 10 years. Okay. And I was in Nashville. I worked at some big churches. I got to be a tour pastor and go on the road with some neat bands, some neat people. And most of the musicians that I know that have done some really, what we could say, big things and are well known, most of them would say, but they sold out to the music industry. They're no longer their authentic self. They're trying to make music that is radio friendly, that will make hits, right? They're literally in the industry. They love it, but they're trying to make hits, but they've lost themselves and trying to write the music that people will like, not even necessarily what they like.
Yeah.
And are people getting changed by it? I think, yeah, sure. But you got some people. I'll use Derek Webb, for instance. I don't know him really well anymore. I used to know him well. He was in a group initially called Caveman's Call. I don't know if you guys remember Caveman's Call, old school band. And when I was younger, I'm way older than you girls. They were popular out of Texas, and they were like kind of mainstreamy. And he just got sick of it. And he started writing this music that was authentically him. And it didn't get radio played because it was more prophetic in nature. And prophets aren't usually loved,
right.
Especially when they're saying hard words. But the freedom, and I think that was for me. I was going in the season, right? I read this book, Wild at Heart. And then some of the people that I listened to that I really liked, like Derek Webb and others, they were writing these prophetic things. And like one of the things that Derek Webb said in this song, you should look up, it's called Wedding Dress. And he writes that, he says, I am a whore, I do confess. I put you on just like a wedding dress and walk down the aisle like nothing is right. Like everything is perfect. But in his heart and everything, he's actually sold out to other things.
Wow.
And he started writing about how Christians need to basically confess who they are, not say that we need to share all of our sin and drama with everybody in the world, but we need to shed ourselves of it. And until we shed ourselves of the fakeness that we have, like if we come to church and we're coming in with a white wedding dress, and yet that's not who we are, right? Then how can God change? How can God do things in us when we've not really allowed him to penetrate us?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. If I've walled up my heart, then he can't change it.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've got to be authentically us. And I think the more authentic we are, and the more we're willing to, again, confess and slow down. I think it's interesting. You're talking about slow down and be, complacent with some things. And when Lazarus died, okay, Mary and Martha sent word to Jesus, and Jesus heard it, said, okay, he's gonna be okay. But he'd been dead for 2 days when he said that. And then he stayed where he was 2 more days. So like, hey, your boy Lazarus is dying or dead. I think they said dying. They said dying. They didn't realize he was dead. Your boy Lazarus is dying. Jesus said, okay. And then he stood where he was 2 more days, and then he left. He wasn't rushing to actually heal Lazarus, and he could have. That was his buddy. The reason for the wait, though, as you continue to read the story, is not only was God working in the hearts of the Jewish people around Mary and Martha to prepare them for the miracle that was going to be done, but God was also working in the disciples' hearts so that when they experienced it, now more people's eyes were open to the truth of who Jesus was. And it all came from Jesus being slow in nature and content with where he was at the moment. And as he leaned into and walked slowly into his, not rushing to get there, more people's lives were changed by it. There's something I say here every once in a while when I remember to say it, is, we want to get there fast, but God wants us to get there ready.
No, that's good.
And when I think about Jesus and Lazarus, the natural thought is he's got to get there. Well, and he could have done that. He could have snapped his finger and said, okay, Lazarus, is good. But he had to prepare everybody else. And, the mark of maturity, I think, for us as people is, are we okay with things taking more time for more people to be impacted by it?
That's good.
And that's what we see in Jesus and Lazarus. And that's where I am in my life, right? Is I'm 42, and I know you girls are like 19 and 21.
No. Yeah, right. We'll take it though.
But I'm 42, and I'm thinking, in some ways in my life, now, it's again, I feel like I'm so overwhelmed that I am where I am. But I can't tell you, when I was 21, I didn't think I would be where I am right now. I thought I'd be in a completely different space. And I promise you, making way more money than I am now. That was where I thought.
Yeah. And,
but again, there's a part of me I had to learn. And my mom and dad was really helpful in this, we see this even true for a lot of young adults coming out now. They want to be where their parents are, but their parents are 20 years older than they. So they just want to get there. And they don't realize there's a process. And we don't realize that, if our character's not right, then even though we may get somewhere, we can't stay where our character won't keep us. Right. Yeah, and so there's a building and a maturing that to get us. And so how do we get there faster? Well, maybe work on our character. Work on your character, and then maybe the Lord will take you there.
Right.
Yeah. But again, I think for us and for me, I had to decide. I had to get to the point where I said, you know what? Again, making the difference over making the point. As if I'm really going to let God use me, then, and I want to be used for more than just one thing. Yeah. That's a point. One thing. That's a point. Right. I want to be used for more than that. And maybe that's wrong. But in my view, I would just say, like, I want God to use me as much and however he wants. And if it's one thing, you know what, then high five. Thank you, God, I don't deserve that. But in my heart, I want God just to have his way. Just have your way. Right. But he can't have his way if I don't give him myself. And that included all of those labels and for me, I wasn't always given labels by other people. I mean, again, I never even have a nickname. I wasn't really, I created labels for me. Other people didn't have to give me labels. Yeah. But I also had to hang those up, right? Yeah. And burn those things and give those to Jesus. Because if God was going to use me, I couldn't come to him as someone else. I had to come to him as me. Yeah. And then I had to let him just take me and do what he wants to do. And really, from Free Life Ministries that I get the benefit of being the executive director of, is that's the whole heart of the ministry, is to say that there are so many people all around the world. And right now we're in a lot of churches, really mainly throughout the United States. We have a ton in Arizona, Florida that utilize and call into us and use us quite frequently. But our heart and our hope is that people would be able to truly find freedom in Christ. Galatians 5:1 says it's for freedom that Christ set us free. For freedom. And when we are not free to be us, then we can't be used. And we want people to experience the freedom that truly Christ brings, so they can experience the joy that he offers in submission to him. And truly, we believe that if we can freely allow God to use us, then the Lord will freely change the world.
That's good. I love that, making a difference over making a point. And I think you're definitely doing that. And I'm so glad that you've decided to be authentically who God created you to be, and that you went through that process, because we know lives are being changed because of it, and through New Beginnings Fellowship, and through New Life Ministries, and all that you guys are doing there. And I'm just grateful. I know this message and like what you've brought to the table is going to set some people free, and it's going to cause them to think, even if just that there's so many nuggets out of this already, but
it's like tweetable moment, tweetable moment.
Even if they just take, am I making a difference, or am I trying to make a point? Am I trying to make a point, or is the goal to make a difference? Even just if we approach situations like that, just like if a conflict came up, am I trying to make my point, or am I for the greater good? Like that, even if they just take that away, is just so powerful. But we would love for you to let people know how they can follow you. We know you said you deleted Facebook, but how they can find out more about New Beginnings Fellowship, how they can find out more about Free Life Ministries and all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. So Free Life Ministries and myself both are on Instagram and LinkedIn. You can just, I think you just put in Matthew Costner, at Matthew Costner, and get to both. But you can also check out Free Life Ministries at www.freelifeministries.org. And you can set up any appointment there. And there's easy ways to set it up. Most of it has been provided by generous donations and donors, helping people, again, seek freedom. And so I would just encourage anyone that if you're battling with being authentically you, who God created you to be, then sign up and we'll find a way to help take care of the cost.
Well, that's awesome. I'm so glad you guys offer that. So needed. And we just love, I know sometimes as you're walking through things and doing things, and especially in like ministry, you don't always see the impact that you're making, or you don't always feel like maybe you're doing enough, but we see you and we love you and just appreciate your ministry and your heart. And literally anytime we go to New Beginnings and hear a message from you, it's just applicable to where we're at. And there's so many good one-liners. And we just know you're making a difference at New Beginnings and in Hollister, Missouri, and the Branson area, and also
and beyond.
And beyond through the New Life Counseling, and just, a lot of people. You're a great networker, and so I just know you've touched many, many lives. And so we just thank you for your obedience to the calling that God has on your life, and just being willing to find your identity in Him. And I know that struggle of comparison and trying to be something you're not, to please people. And so just thank you for doing the hard work to overcome that, because we need our bubs.
Yeah.
Well, I love you guys. Thank you so much. I truly, it's always, you bring so much joy to the room when you guys come to the church, when you lead. Our people have always said when you guys are with us that they just totally felt the presence of the Holy Spirit. And when I think about the people I want around me, it's the people that truly bring the Lord with them, and you guys do. And I'm just so thankful for both of you and your family.
Thank you.
I only wish that Jim was somehow in the middle here.
I know, right?
I'll have him sitting in the back behind us here.
Cardboard cutout head.
I know someone was just talking, because I was sharing that we're going to have this Christmas song, and it's going to be like with Mary and Joseph. So we're going to have a guy sing Joseph, and they were like, so is that going to be Jim's part? I was like, I don't think so.
No.
I love it.
Yeah. So, but he adds so much to our ministry, for sure.
Does.
Yeah. Love him.
So,
well, thank you. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to another episode of Coming Up Higher. We know you're impacted today, and we just encourage you to go live out the authenticity in authenticity and being who God created you to be. And we'd appreciate it if you share this podcast with someone you think it could encourage. And also, if you can rate and subscribe to this podcast, we would appreciate it greatly. So
Yeah. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.